Now you know. All right, I'm going to say thank you, Frank, and let you start with your thing. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you all for coming. This is really kind of fun. It's something I had not anticipated doing. A couple of people talked to me and said, it was Alan and I think Carol saying, would you do a little photo thing? I thought, okay, great. And then it turned out the 4-day series and all of that, and now it's kind of culminated in this, and it's pretty exciting. My wife and I moved here a year ago this month, and we're really excited to be here, and this really kind of cements involvement in the community. So there's a whole lot of that going on. So here we are, it's World Photography Day. What we're going to do in the next 45 minutes is look at the best from the Hearthstone class, and there's some pretty amazing photos. And then what I've done is I've curated some of the best professional photos from the year thus far, and also some photos from 3 of my favorite photographers, 1 international and 2 from here in the Pacific Northwest. And what we'll do is we'll look at the photographs from the people here at the Hearthstone and talk about some of the concepts we talked about and the way they're illustrated in the photographs. Then, as we look at the professional photographers, you'll see them brought to life. The reason we look at the professional photographers secondly is because, well, they're just so spectacular and we mere mortals will never catch up. So it's better to start out like this. So what we start with, Alan, is the ability to make it move. So there's nothing more exciting than a still photo.
Point it at the computer. Try pointing it at this. See what
Pointing
happens.
it at that?
Yeah. Here, let me see.
Yeah, wow.
Maybe it's off.
So,
Let's try it again. Why did it dance for me, but it's not dancing for you?
I'm not a very good dance partner.
Oh, it's frozen entirely.
There we go. All right. So we'll figure it out. Which one is back and forward? This?
Yes.
Okay. So if it doesn't work, I'll just hit that.
Okay.
All right. So photo greenlight. Our goal is very, very simple. Have fun. And I think everybody did. I know I did. We did 4 sessions together where we learned some concepts, met here, and then went across the lake. Or for those folks who did go across the lake, simply go up to their apartment and take some photos, or take photos around here. That's what's so great. You know, the idea is, yeah, it'd be great to go across the lake. Well, sometimes you can't. So that's wherever you do that. And the really fun thing for me was at the very beginning, I asked, how many of you using cameras? Nobody. Everybody using phones on their cameras. No, cameras on their phones. So that made it even more fun. So what first I'd like you to do is meet what I call the Hearthstone snappers. All right? Yep, that's right. So here we are heading out to the lake. And I would give assignments. I had gone over there, 2 girls sitting in that tent, and I asked them if it was all right if this photo class came and took pictures, and we took a lot of different pictures of them. And then, of course, I took pictures of people taking pictures. And then the last one, I put a little monkey. I have a little monkey I carry around all the time as a prop. Put it on the rock right outside and asked people to take photos from different angles. And you see May down there. But it's not just this group. There are more. So here we are, 10 in all. All right? Who went out spending time. Now, let's talk about what we were trying to do. We were trying to go from just taking a snapshot to consciously making a photograph. And what I stressed was don't just take one picture of your subject. You know, that's what we always do. We go up and we go click, and then we walk away or snap. Take 4 or 5, because as soon as you slow down and do that, you start seeing the possibilities of making a photograph. The number one thing in making a really good photograph is patience. Slowing down, focusing, no pun intended, on what it is you're doing, then taking the photograph. And then the last line, if you don't like your photo, you're probably not close enough. Well, that's not true in a landscape, but in lots of other things it really is. So let me give you an example of how that works. So this is over at PCC Co-op, and I took it specifically for this class. And that's a fun photo. What's a photo of? There's too much. Is it a photo, well, okay, you could say it's a photo of two kids in a basket, all right? It's a grocery cart in a store. See how busy it's all around? Well, what I did is I first asked permission, and then I took 2 or 3 steps closer and got that. So the basic idea is slow down, when it's the appropriate time, step forward and take a look, and you end up with that. Here's another one. You know, there's so many picture opportunities across on the Great Lawn and around the lake and whatnot. So I saw this, I thought, I just kind of liked the way that was arranged. So I took a photo, but you see, you got up in the corner up here, that sort of thing. I thought, well, no, wait a minute. So I got down low, walked in closer, and got that. And as somebody said, yes, it's brand advertising. I didn't mean it to be. But a couple of elements that I want to point out real quickly about this photograph that I will talk about throughout this is, you'll notice it's not centered. There's a thing called the rule of thirds, that if you divide it this way and this way, if you put your subject matter in one of these 4 spots, it's much more intriguing to the eye rather than being centered. So you'll see this is not centered. It also has just a little bit of tension because the bag is leading a diagonal line. When it's nothing but horizontal lines, as you'll see later, it's very calm. All right? So, here's what we saw. Pat doing as I asked, 4 shots, moving closer. So if you look at the first one, yeah, it's a thistle. And the next one's kind of interesting. And then, can you see what's here in this one? Not necessarily. But when she took the 4th shot, by getting it even closer, there it is.
Oh.
And you see the bee?
Yeah.
All right? That's by just moving in a little bit more. Claudia, the monstrosity at the building down the street, right? And then I liked walking over and looking up. That's really kind of interesting. And then one more. What makes that photograph? The diagonal lines and the way the reflection, the red, are shifted off. That really makes that an interesting photograph because she moved around. May was out walking around and loves this tree. What did May see in the tree? I'm going to make this up because I haven't asked her, but I'm going to assume it's the contrast with the red berries, that sort of thing. So she moved in closer to get the red berries. Nice. One step more. So moving in closer. Now it's an interesting photo because it has these lines. It has a triangle. It's just, and the rule of thirds. Right? This is really an interesting series from Jill. And I like it. She just keeps moving to take different things. Which one of these 3 do you like best? Just shout out a number, 1, 2, or 3.
2.
Yeah. 1, okay, 1 or 2. Well, I like 1 because it's framed a bit, but for me, there's too much here. This one, it's a picture of a sign, and when we have writing in a photograph, the first thing people do is read the writing. Okay? I like this one because it has a part of what this is. We all know what's going on with tense and whatnot, and then the statement. I think that's a really strong photograph. Have you seen this? It's over by the school over there. I thought, well, that's interesting. But what's in there that could be a better standalone picture? That. And for me, if it were a billboard, and so it was perfectly flat, the photo was not weathered or aged at all, I'd be going, but I like the fact it's all, this relationship has been weathered. You can see that. See what happens when you move in? The one one on the right, that's Sarah Jo, is like, what's going on here? Well, I assume she's looking at her phone, right? Well, if you look closely, her phone's here. She's looking somewhere. Well, you don't know what's going on. But there's a story there of some sort. What's this person doing? Contemplative by the lake? Getting in close. So there's an interesting thing as I was preparing this. Now, I will tell you, the photographs from the students, I have not manipulated other than at times to brighten them. So that you can see them better. But this little kid on the swing, right? And I'm going, that's really interesting. Can you see this? Dad's hand, either just catching or pushing. And to me, it might have been a stronger photograph if there had been more of the hand in there, or none of it. Either way, it's still fun. So, it was really thrilling after our first outing to find out we have a cover photo. So that was from July 30th, right? The newsflash. And Madeline took that photograph and we talked about it, and Madeline said, she wrecked it. It's like, no, wait. So if you take a big photograph and whatnot, and then for publication purposes it needs to fit in a certain space, it has to be cropped.
Yeah, I asked her to.
And you asked her to, all right? Well, there it is, cropped. Because it was a big, tall photograph, and that's getting in closer. I think it's really sweet. When you look at it, and one of the fun things is to stop and really investigate photographs, what's in there, right? I don't know how many of you have seen the little duck here. That to me really kind of adds something. It's just fun. Now, another idea was change your point of view. So what happens is we see something and we take a picture of it. And most of us take pictures with our iPhone like this, right? And what that means is that your photograph looks just like, if I take a picture of the piano like this and then show it to you, you're going to say, oh yeah, that's a picture of a piano. Because it's the point of view that we all have from here. What happens if you move the camera up or down or sideways? A couple of things. It changes the dynamic of the photograph, and it also helps you eliminate clutter. Remove the clutter, because in a good photograph, less is more. Let me give you an example. It's kind of neat. Guy sitting by the lake. But there's some really disturbing things for me in this photograph. One, the white trash bag, right? It's really intrusive. And over to if you go all the way up to the upper left-hand corner, the shoreline over there. I mean, they are just to me a little awkward. So what I did was I simply walked 4 or 5 feet to the left, turned, and got that. His body is hiding the bag. The path takes your eye out onto the lake, and you see where the shoreline ends. That's just simply by shifting my position and my point of view. I was really intrigued by this young girl leaning against a tree reading. So I took the photo. Well, what's wrong with it? Too much. Look at the background. So I went like this with my phone and went click and got that. Now, people say, yeah, but maybe you can't see your phone. Well, fortunately, we're all living in the digital age. If you were doing it with a roll of 24 shots of film, then you have to develop them, and at $2.50 a shot or whatever, it gets expensive. Well, you can take 10 photographs and delete the 9 you don't like. So that's an encouraging thing to do now. The other thing that I really liked about it is the way the shadow comes leading into her. It just turned out to be nice. And I must, in all honesty, it's not like I stood there and composed it all. sometimes you get lucky. So let's see what happened with our Hearthstone snappers. 4 different photographs of the boats. You know, one of them might strike your fancy. None of them do. And you look for little things like this, the diagonal line, and this one going all the way across, right? The lower right-hand corner. And I like the chain in the one that's in the lower left. So here we are, a tree. It is really kind of interesting to see the way these trees lean out over the lake, right? So maybe the attempt in that picture on the left is to capture that. Well, it's not very dramatic. Okay, moving closer. All right, so she moved in closer and got the trunk, strong diagonal going up, but it's still kind of confusing. So that's taking the picture like this. What happens if you go like this? You get that. Just by moving. Being patient. Thinking, now wait a minute, why am I taking this picture? What is it do I want to include? Well, we did this from her deck. And what I really like about it is the one on the far left is a picture of the building out there. The one on the right, I think she zoomed in, but it makes that monolith over there as overpowering as it's going to be, which I think was really great. And then just adding a flower for some interest in the foreground. When you're doing landscape, that sort of thing, it's really good to have something in the foreground because it gives you a sense of scale. All right? What's this? It's a picture of the water. What else? Sunshine on the water. And a few reeds. Composition, though, doesn't work real well. So this is one where you do just the opposite of what I've been saying. Don't get closer. Back up. Change your point of view, and you get this. So if you go back, if I can, yeah. See these reeds and the leaves on the left? Well, here they are here. There they are, right? But now we get this, and the wonderful thing of the path taking us into the water. These are all from our Hearthstone snappers. Really fun. So, I'm going to say who did this, Don. So, I got, the only real resistance I got from people in the class is when I'm insisting, take 4 or 5 photos of something. You know, and because it's not a natural thing to do, we want to move on. So Don sees these folks, and first one, and then the second one is cute, and then this third one. So Don, I'm going to be a little critical if I can, because I know you can take it. In this first one, there are 2 big things that don't help the photo. One is the bottoms are cut off here. The second is the, what do we call it, the land over there. If you're going to include it, you got to include it. If you're not going to include it, you take it out, which is what you did here, which is great, right? Then this is really cute. Now, I said earlier that one of the things you got to do in photography is patience. So Sam Abel, who's a photographer who lives on Whidbey Island, and I'll talk about him later, says that one of the most important things you can do is wait for a gesture. Wait for a gesture. So Don was very patient, waited, and got that. And that's a much more interesting photograph. I wonder why her fist is closed. She's not pointing. Well, she's starting to point at something. Yes. So the back of the shirt says, work hard, have fun, make history. Which is, of course, what the snappers are doing. Isn't that great? So, this is one of Don's again. We call these the chain gangs. They're wandering all around. And what he did was simply turn the camera so that they're going uphill. If it were just flat, horizontal, you'd be going, yeah, okay. It's interesting that none of the kids are looking at him, which makes it kind of, okay, cool. Really, they caught them. I think it's wonderful. Climbing up the hill. All right. We ended up with another cover photo. Ta-da. This one taken by Betty. Now this is another one where it's cropped. And lots of times the cropping makes the photo stronger. In this case, maybe not. Because that's the original. And the hanging down branches, I think that's really great. And you can tell that's not necessarily shot at eye level. I think she's down a bit. It turns out well. That arch, really very, very cool. Now, there's going to be a series here that will be unidentified. I got so many from this robust group that I'm just going to go through some of them. So, the attempt here of getting the Hearthstone and our residents. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thought that was interesting. Look at that. Now, what makes this interesting? Tell me what do you think it would be? Betty, go ahead and say it. The fact they're leaning, absolutely right, creates some tension. They're leaning in the same direction. Something else.
Do you always do that when you stand up on foot?
Always do that? No, some people just do it like this. And then they go like that. No, it's you got to be a little younger to do that. But what is interesting is he's got his eyes closed. She does not. Yeah, I think that's fun. Sandra Jo, who is off camping again, what I like about this are all of the different angles. And because she got in close, it's a study rather than just a photograph or a picture of a tree. You know, this line taking you out to here, who knows where that goes? You get the real sense of strength there. I just thought it was an intriguing photo. Comments about this one? Great diagonal line, takes you right through the photograph. Okay, I'll tell you what I see. What I like about it is, we don't know whether she's in the water or not. If the shoes were not there, you'd be going, but I love the fact that shoes are there and the way his arm is. I think they're just two wonderful people sitting on the shoreline, enjoying life. And they're looking at something off in the distance. I just like that photograph. So one thing I meant to mention at the beginning and I didn't. It may look a little fuzzy. Some of them look like they're out of focus. That's a function of my having to take the small photograph and blowing it up for this. So a lot of them are in focus that don't look in focus here, just so that you know that. Sunset. Pretty dramatic. All the different colors in it. It's really hard to do sunrise and sunset photos. This one was blurry, is blurry, but for me it's almost an impressionistic painting because of the colors. And I'll tell you, you see the reflections here and the reflection line here. I just think it's really great. And this is echoed by that. And because there is no strong diagonal, it's peaceful. Nice photo. As is this. So what we have, there's a thing, sometimes we call it a frame in a frame. So here's the frame, but then also this is a frame inside the photo. And inside that frame is another bit of a frame with somebody on a paddleboard. See the person on the paddleboard? And then a kind of soft diagonal coming through the bottom that's echoed by this one up above. Really good composition. Silhouettes are fun. I've never met a one-legged duck. But if you're out there taking photographs as the sun is going down, you know, you always want to have the sun behind your back. But if you intentionally put the sun in front of you, then what you get is the silhouette. And there's some fun photographs of people sitting on the benches or whatever, and it's just this black outline with the lake behind them. So it's an interesting way of doing some of those photographs. What do you see here? Texture, absolutely right. What does the texture show you? A dreadful tree? An ancient tree? Is there a human element?
Face.
Look at this face. And there's a face up above. Isn't that fun? So one of the things, one of the people, I think the person who took this photograph down, said to me, "You've screwed up my life." It's okay, again, why? Because I don't look at things the same way. And that's the whole idea, is to start seeing stuff we haven't seen before. The only reason this is in there is because how many times have we taken pictures of soccer balls or different things? But look at what's happening here. Rule of thirds, lower left-hand corner. And without the shadow, it wouldn't mean anything. What are you saying, Betty? Yeah. Blocking out the shadow. But if the shadow weren't there, it wouldn't have any depth. What gives a photograph depth is contrast between light or dark. And the stronger that, the more depth the photograph feels. So these are the ladies, and we have several photographs of them. I chose this one simply because it would have been two girls sitting in a tent if it hadn't been for the fact that the food's included and her expression and gesture. It shows something is happening. This I find to be an intriguing photograph. We discussed whether or not it would be better at black and white. Because what we've been doing, I should have mentioned, we go out and shoot and then everybody sends me their photos and then the next time we kind of critique some of them. I don't think it would have, this to me looks like it's out of the 30s. And the way the shadow is on the trunk and the back, I just think is really great. And as somebody, when we were doing the class critique, that's what makes it so much fun, is this tree back here, which I hadn't really noticed. So now we've got that trio and this kind of scrawny one over here. I just think that it's an intriguing photo. It's something that invites you in to explore. What makes this fun? Well, okay, it's a scooter, that's fun. What else?
The framing of it.
The framing of it and the placement of it.
Yeah.
If this were here, it wouldn't have anywhere to scoot to.
Yeah.
Now it has room to move.
Oh.
Yeah, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that something? Now that was obviously not taken here. But it was sent and I just had to put it in. Now you say, oh my goodness, why?
I mean, I just can't imagine seeing that all together and then having the shadow in the water and, oh, it's just remarkable.
It's stunning, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
It's been cropped beautifully
Yeah.
at the edges.
Yeah, it's been cropped and whatnot because there's nothing on the edge and whatnot. And it was not part of this, and I don't know if it was taken with the phone or not, but it needed to be included because I had the same reaction. Oh, wow. How often do we see the dogs running around out there? Right? Now, interestingly enough, those dogs are not in the center of it this way. If they were, just even a little bit more, you'd be going, But just because there's just off a little bit, it forces you to look at it a little differently. This is in focus, this is not so much in focus. Fun. I did this simply because someone said it to me and said, here's the title, money laundering. We all need a little humor.
Probably everybody has their bowl looking like that with something on it all the time.
Yeah, oh yeah, I bet, yeah. I just love that, money laundering. Okay. Now, this is the kind of thing where you don't have to take a picture of everything, you take a picture of details. You know, this is the arch over here, right? I really like that because look at how the eye comes up and is just carried all the way around. And the light in the back of it is wonderful. And then this, that same place, framing the little kid. I think those are really fun. You ready for this, though? So, how do you think's going on here? So, I have a question for you. Is this photograph wider at the top than it is at the bottom? And cropped into a little bit of a V?
Looks like it.
Sure does. Feels like it, doesn't it? Well, I tell you, I had it on my big monitor, and I got out the ruler. They're the same. It is purely an optical illusion. Isn't that powerful?
Yep.
Do you know what it is?
That's good.
Go ahead and tell us.
It's the top of the desk.
It's the top of a roll-up desk. If you turned it sideways, you'd see it. Isn't that great? So Weissman has a lot of experience and has used Photoshop. And so using Photoshop, she did a panorama, took the color out of it, desaturated it, and created this photograph. What's your reaction? Positive? Yeah, it's a really good photograph. Let me tell you a couple of reasons why I think it's so good. First of all, the compositional balance. There's a lot of stuff going on over here. There's nothing over here. It's just this great balance. This line takes you out to, we don't know where. The activity is all over there, but something's, wow, comes out here. And then there's another thing that I think is, unless you really look at it, it's easy to miss. And that is you have this group of people here, and then you have another group of people right here. You see them in there? If she had moved to her left a little bit, or her right a little bit, so that this tree moved and cut this white shirt or whatever it is in half, then the picture would lose a lot of its impact. When lines cross like that, it just goes, ooh. So you could actually, this could be a photograph in itself, almost. So I just think it's really good. And I love the fact she took the color out of it. And I'll explain why in a minute. She did one other one. Now, we talked about this. I think it's really great. For me, one of the things that makes it is the shadow. Gives you the time of day and all of that. Her comment that she doesn't like is the way this is hanging down. Agreed, but short of going out with a pruner and getting rid of it. And then the other thing is I'm explaining, okay, let's say you did, and you waited until he got here, you could say, oh, it'd be framed. But it wouldn't be, because you'd have all this behind it, all of that. I think it's great just the way it is, and I don't really mind that thing hanging down. Good photograph. So, round of applause for the Hearthstone Snap. Right? Now, I do believe that with just a little more work, they're going to be as good as the photos we're about to see. Just a little more. All right? So, best photos of the year. and some others, right? So where are you gonna start in this year? The Olympics, of course. Photographs from the Olympics. Spent a fair amount of time going through them to get some spectacular photographs that kind of highlight what we're talking about. What do you notice about this one to begin with, referencing what we talked about? Yep, offset, right. If the ball had been right in the middle, it would have looked like the words Tokyo 2020 were on a teeter-totter. Okay? So, that's perfect. Now, in the next 3 or 4, pay attention to the eyes. When we look at photographs of people, we always go to the eyes. So, portrait photographers, all of those say the most important thing you can do in portraiture is to have razor sharp focus on the eyes. Okay? And it's hard to do in athletics. Some experts can do it. We all know who she is. So look at her eyes. Where she, she's just focused on wherever. What I like about this is you have the balance being a horizontal line, this leg is a horizontal line, and this arc with the brightness of the bottom of her foot takes you up and out of the frame. I just think that's spectacular.
I don't understand why the eye is important in that picture.
I'm taking you there. It isn't necessarily, no, it's a great question, Betty, but if her eyes were closed or something, the idea that she is so focused on what's going on. Now look at that. That's why. Now, the other thing there are a couple of things that make this a great photograph is the fact her eyes, right? But if you'll notice closely, and I don't know whether you can because of the resolution in here, really the only thing that's in focus is her head and her neck. Everything else is softly out of focus. And you do that using certain settings on the camera that you're not going to be able to do with a phone. But these people are using cameras that are worth thousands of dollars and all that sort of thing. But it brings all of the focus to her face. And look at her fists. And the lines in her neck. I mean, you can tell she is so tense. I mean, imagine this woman having the courage to say, I can't do it anymore because I don't want upside down, I can't find the ground. Wow, okay. I can't find the ground walking to lunch. Anyway, there you go. Talk about a strong diagonal coming in from the top. And if her eyes were not perfectly in focus, it would not be quite as powerful. Okay? I just love that. The anticipation, the look on her face, wow. Upside down on the beam. Looking right at you. So when we go out the next time with the snappers, we're going to have some of the people lay on top of those little bleachers that are out there. Put your head back and we'll take pictures of your eyes. Just to give you a sense of how high they get. But I like the fact that what this does, there's so many different ways this could have been taken. If we come up a bit and just saw the bar, it would be kind of in a void. But by including the judges and empty stands, you get the story. Japan won the gold medal in baseball, and baseball was put in this Olympics because it's in Japan, because they're crazy over baseball. So they just had incredible joy. And of course, Japan's women's softball team, great joy as well. This is one of those anticipatory photographs. What do you think happens to the woman who's half in the water?
Falls?
Well, this leg is already underwater.
Oh, yeah.
So I would bet to say the photographer shot 20 frames in 2 seconds. You can do that with highly motorized cameras and got one photo like that and all of the drama that's in there. What do you see here? So the fact that he's in focus and he's not. I love when you look at a photograph making up stories. He is so focused on this, just on the ball, right? And you got this long diagonal thing. And I think this person's hand is over his heart because he's praying. Don't hit it that hard, or whatever. I think that's just great. Sometimes you get really lucky with the placement of the ping pong ball. There are 3 things about this photograph that just make me go, oh wow. One is the happenstance of the ball being right there, and the fact her eye is looking at the ball, right? The fact that she only has one arm, one hand, right? I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And then this is just perfectly flat. I mean, what's it? Wow. That's pretty dramatic. As is the start. Isn't that great? So now this, we talked about point of view. So if the cameraman were up above looking down, you'd get basically back to heads. If it were perfectly straight on, you just get side. But he or she is down coming up. And that's what gives you that impact. And then you go underwater if you like. So there is the term leading lines. You know, you can find, we're going to work on that when we go through the next series of classes. Lines that take you places. Look at all these leading lines taking you back to the beginning. And the tension that they create. Isn't that something? And the fact that this is so close to the lens, probably a zoom lens, but I just, the energy in that. And I may be over-stressing it, but there's a diagonal that goes here and here. Synchronized swimming. I just have to include it because of the one on the left. Are you in or are you out? How do they come out of the water and flip like that? I don't know. I thought it's an interesting photo. This photo for me captures it even more. They're inhaling at the same time. They might be identical twins. They're just, I mean, everything is there. So we saw the group. Now we see the 2. Did you know there are solo synchronous swimmers? Think about it. But if there were, this is what she would look like. Isn't that wonderful? Just, you know, wow. And then men going into the water as well. What I like about this photograph is that, you know, obviously you go like this, and you see back here, but this line also takes you up and out of the stadium. So you recognize where they are. I just like what people do on skateboards. The fact that this person is nowhere near the ground. And look at his hands. You know who she is. So look at this photograph. Just thinking of the photograph. There is, triangles are really powerful. Well, look at this triangle. Her head, her foot, and the ball. Right? Head, foot, ball. I mean, that really makes it. And then the fact of her absolute concentration. I mean, also, when you look at photographs like this, you always look at the hands. Is there tension there? Absolutely. And it's shot with a shutter speed that's just slow enough that the ball blurs. I just think it's really a great photograph. Now, like this one because of the extended leg, right? This is called just before the explosion. And I would bet she threw that thing a long ways. Isn't that just great? And again, the eyes. So let's talk for a minute about the black and white, the power of black and white. When you take color out of an image, it forces you to focus more on the content. There's no more distractions. It's like, what's the power in here? Why is this powerful? And if you look at that, I mean, there was some color in it. I sucked it out to give you the point. You know, if you could see, there's a faint line right here. They're just above it. That person, I think, is on the floor. But I just think that that's really something. So there's some that come out of the Olympics that are black and white. Two things about this. Notice her eyes. Absolutely sharp. Again, diagonal line behind her, right? I just think it's a really good photograph. The power of black and white. There you go. Again, happenstance. Looks like he's trying to fly. What?
He doesn't look like he belongs together.
Yeah, he doesn't belong together. I bet he's double jointed in each shoulder. Yeah. See, now this is just black and white, and what I get out of this is concentration. What's she thinking about? Is she going, I'm gonna go do this, or do I get to have dinner tonight, or, I mean, what, you know, it's just, I think it's a sweet photograph. Now, the next photograph, I'm only putting it in here because it doesn't have anything to do with Olympics or whatnot, but I put it in here because it is one of the most stunning black and white photographs I've ever seen, because it is crystal sharp and all of the elements are there.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that incredible? Let's talk about the eyes for a minute. Look at the bull. The bull's looking right at you. And if you could look closely, you'd see he's looking at you as well. Look at this triangle, right? Is there a horizontal line here? Is there a horizontal line here? I just think it's incredible. I wonder if he was okay. Okay. One of my favorites is Annie Leibovitz. We all know her work. Well, I read a lot of stuff about photography, and I love picking up quotes. And hers is, I fight to take a good photograph every time. What's she fighting against? The impulse to take it quickly, the impulse to not slow down, the impulse to do this or that. And then, when I take a photo, I take 10% of what I see. That's the concept of get rid of the clutter, get as close as you can, all of that, right? So just a few of her quick samples. You don't need a real expensive camera. There she is in the field with a little Leica. Now, if you watch some of her videos on YouTube, and if you really love photography, they are spectacular. She'll go on a shoot with, you know, a staff of 15, but she knows what she's doing. Look at that. Now, some of the elements that we've been talking about are present here. There are no strong diagonal lines, which does what? Calm. There's this road that takes you off somewhere. The eye typically goes to the brightest spots in the photo, so your eye goes way back there. It gives it some depth. And then she puts the subject in the middle of a frame. Quite stunning. Then she does just the opposite, tension and mystery. It's obviously Jack Nicholson on Mulholland Drive. And you get the sense the road is going down here somewhere. I mean, the way she's got the car positioned, all of that, she put a big floodlight behind the car to add that drama. She put him way over there so that you get, you know, if you remember this film, Chinatown, all of those films about Los Angeles, it is that mystery of all of that stuff. They're like, yeah, but this is her, and this is her artistic statement. Yeah,
You look and you look twice. You think,
yeah, yeah, that's right. And you know, how do you direct a guy like Jack Nicholson? Turn your head and look serious. Okay. Simplicity of black and white. Meryl Streep,
Oh, for heaven's sake.
powerful photograph. All she did was put white makeup on her and nothing else. I mean, it's just boom. Tom Cruise. What makes this photograph is the way she positioned him, but the lighting. Lighting is everything. There is the, you know, when you take a photograph, all you're doing is photography is about taking pictures of light. So studying light is really, really important. But she doesn't just do those. If you were 90 years old, when you're 90 years old, would you like to have her take your photograph? She did.
Oh,
That's for her 90th birthday.
oh, wow.
Doesn't that look like a painting?
Yes.
Sets her off to the side, puts her in the context of all of that stuff and whatnot. And then gathers everybody together for that. Now I looked at this photograph and thought, okay, what's going on? Because she's almost centered, but off a little bit. I like the way she's arranged everybody. And she's just a master of this. I'll bet this little girl was just having temper tantrums. And she probably said, would you hold the purse? Solve the problem. But there's another element in this. And I'd love to ask her, but I know would never, if I ever had a chance, I'm going to just say it. She planned it this way. Look at the mirror. That's an infinity mirror, you know, with one mirror next, and it just goes on and on and on. I think that represents the royal family, past and future. I think that's just stunning. Okay, let's go to some local people. Art Wolf, world renowned, 80 photography books. Never stop looking, no matter where you are, everywhere you are, there are good photographs. All right? So he goes to, you know, the Japanese gardens here, various gardens. He goes there with his tripod and does this. I should talk softly, because if you look at how tranquil that is, and you'll notice, no, they're all horizontal lines, right? Plateaus. And then you look at the water. See how it's kind of fuzzy? Well, you do that by slowing down the shutter speed. You don't want to catch the, you know, freeze the water. You want it to have that flow. Pretty spectacular. He would also agree with, sometimes you need to get up close. And that's what you get. Notice where he placed it? Just, you know, the colors, all of that. Of course, that's not what he's famous for. He's famous for stuff like this. So, Art Wolf and those people who do this, they go out to the mountains at 2 in the morning. They set up their gear, and then they wait. And they wait. And wait for the light to be just perfect. And look at that. Now, I mentioned it before, I'll point it out again. If this weren't here, you wouldn't have the sense of how big and grandeur everything is. So when you're doing landscapes, you have to have something in the foreground to give you a sense of depth. Snoqualmie Falls. You know, some really amazing stuff that he does. He spends a lot of time in Alaska. Those red fish realize that bear is not friendly. Isn't that something? Wow. And another kind of bear, which happens to be one of the deadliest animals in the world, is perhaps one of the cuddliest. Isn't that great?
I love about this so much.
National Geographic, you've seen it before. One of his most famous photographs. And then finally, let's talk about a guy named Sam Abel, who lives up on Whidbey Island and teaches classes. He says a photographer needs to get out of the world and make mistakes, which means I'm a photographer, because I make mistakes all the time. And as I said earlier, in this day and age when you can just hit delete, it's a wonderful thing. And the other thing, especially photography, is life lit up. All right?
Oh, geez.
So he's in Dingle in Ireland with his dog and his wife, and there is a dolphin there named Fungi. Fungi is in the bay all the time, and when they go out in the boat, Fungi comes, so he says, okay, let's go out there. He holds on to his dog and just waits for the dolphin to come by, and he did, and he took the photograph. How many times have you said, oh damn, I wish I'd taken that photo? Not that photo, but a photo, when something happened? Yep. You know, we've missed thousands. Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, said, I never missed a shot I didn't take. Right? So you gotta take a lot of photos and you get lucky. But he's far beyond lucky. We all have puzzles. At windows, look what he did, waiting for the light. So if you have a table with a puzzle in front of a window somewhere, wait until the hour before sunset or the hour after sunset, and go take a photo and look at the light. Not during the daytime, right after sunset or just before. Just kind of, I just thought, well, yeah, it shows what he does. Everything's offset a little bit, but there's some tension there. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with this. He loves to go to Japan, and he's one corner that he loves that he goes to. And the story he tells when he teaches classes is that he was there to photograph kind of just this wall, this corner, because he really liked it. And what we've been talking about in all of these classes is look at what you're doing with the lines and what's your intent and all of that. Take more photographs, and most important, be patient, which is what he did. He took this photograph and thought, well, that's kind of nice. And notice what he did. He didn't let her head go here, so it got cut off. It's before there. Very consciously doing that. And he waited. And he got to the corner and talked. And he goes, oh, this is beautiful. What a wonderful photograph. And he waited. And he took another one. 3 really great photos. Older woman, younger woman, and now they're saying goodbye, and you're done. But he's not. He walks to the corner, he turns and looks, and sees that.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's just so...
Her head is above the horizon line, this being the horizon line. It's got rough over here, smooth over there. It's got a line that takes you out of the photograph. Here's the gesture. It's a beautiful photograph. Patience. Practice. That's what it's all about. And that's what we're going to continue to do as we monkey around with all of this stuff. Right? So what I want to say is, thank you for coming. Thank you to the Hearthstone Snappers. And stand by, there's more to come. Our next class starts on the 23rd. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and say thank you, Frank.